Hello, my presentation is about the book Tomboyland Essays by Melissa Feliveno. This book is about uh, Melissa's life. She tells us about her childhood, her teenage years, her adult life, but mainly about her struggle with sexuality and body image. Regarding her sexuality, she's bisexual and she struggled a lot with that. And regarding her body image, she has always had an androgynous body, meaning it's not apparent at a glance whether she's a man or a woman. And she struggled a lot with this, especially in her teenage years. Moreover, she was born and raised in Wisconsin, which she says had uh, was not very nice to people like her. She was very much discriminated against, rather, uh, not by her family. Her family accepted her, but she struggled a lot with it, and to a certain degree, she still does to this day. So summarizing this book can be quite tricky because across 8 chapters we have 8 different topics that the book covers. They're all united by Melissa's struggle with body image, sexuality, and her feelings towards herself as a woman. But there's not an overarching narrative per se. So what I will talk about is the second chapter, Tomboy, because it's the one that covers the main topics. Melissa struggled with body image, sexuality, and womanhood. Uh, yeah, this chapter is exactly what I expected the book to be. It's not what I got, but we'll get there. Melissa talks about her childhood, how from the beginning, she didn't like hanging out with girls. She didn't like feeling girly. She always hung out with boys because she felt more at home. She mentioned how she even rejected the name Melissa for being too girly. She used dozens of different nicknames. She also talks about how once she accepted herself as bisexual, or once she started labeling herself as bisexual, she found out about the discrimination bisexual people face, uh, not from straight people, but from queer people. She mentions how some queer people will look at bisexual people as privileged because they get to still have straight relationships and not be judged, but they still get to love whoever they want, as gay people want to be able to. And she finds that incredibly unfair and labels it as oppression Olympics, which is an oppression I love because I don't know, I found it funny, and it drives home how people like they like comparing how oppressed they've been, their people have been, I guess. And the chapter ends with something I found very interesting, which is how Melissa couldn't accept herself until she realized she was being homophobic towards herself. How she wasn't accepting her her sexuality. She wasn't accepting that she can love everyone, or at least both uh, men and women, and how she couldn't accept herself until she realized that being androgynous was a part of her. That's her body, and she simply has to love what she has instead of changing it into someone she can love. Before I go on about what I think about this book, I'd like to preface it by saying that I really do think that Melissa is a great writer. Her writing is very fluid, it's very nice to read. The book was very easy to read, even. But that's all the praise I have for this book because I found it terribly boring. Melissa just goes on and on about topics that don't matter. Maybe to her they do. Well, of course they do, and it's a book about her life, and she's mentioning them, so of course they have some meaning. But as a reader, I found it terribly boring. She goes on and on about tornadoes, guns, moths, food, sports, softball in specific. But well, she's trying to establish analogies relating these topics to whatever struggle she's mentioning in said chapter. But it always lands flat because she's trying to establish an analogy by just force feeding us information. And in my opinion, build up should be done subtly and and slowly throughout a book, not over the course of 17 pages and using all of those 17 pages in order to establish an analogy. Of course, it's going to land flat. And it's especially, what's the word? Not boring, but it's especially hard to read when after the analogy is done and the message got across to the reader, she keeps going about the topic as if it mattered, which it's just not interesting to read. It's not interesting before, and it's even worse after the analogy is done. In my opinion, the book felt like eating something that tastes bad and isn't healthy. It's just unnecessary. That being said, if you're still interested in reading the book, I really wouldn't recommend it, obviously, after what I said. But if you must, read the second chapter, Tomboy, because it really focuses on the topics, on the main topics of this book. And maybe, if you're interested in that, read the second to last chapter called Motherland. That one speaks about the pressure that comes with being a mother or not being a mother, the pressure that comes, that women feel rather, to be mothers, to have children, to give birth. And also, on the other hand, the pressure that comes with deciding not to have children. It's quite interesting, uh, at least in the context of this book, I'd say. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend this book unless you're really interested in Melissa's life. And that's it for my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, even though most of it was me uh, just bad mouthing a book. But hey, I had to give my opinion. So yeah, hope you liked it. Bye.